Hi everybody, Michelle McClunan, astrologer and life navigator, and I'm bringing you an astrology update for the next new moon, which is actually a solar eclipse, which is happening on the 2nd of October. You probably are feeling this energy already because eclipses last for longer in terms of their effect than normal new moons and normal full moons. It can last from up to 10 days before and 10 days after the actual eclipse itself. This is an annular eclipse, which means that the light of the sun is partially covered by the moon's movement, all except for a ring, which is what we call a ring of fire. What we can say is that the light of the sun is kind of vanquished by the moon. What we can say is that the masculine is vanquished by the feminine. Now, this is kind of confirmed by everything else that's connected to this new moon. So hang in there and I'll try and explain it to you. Eclipses happen in pairs, and so this is the second pair that we're having this year. It dates back to 2005, which was when we had another eclipse at the same degree. So if you have a look back in your life as a reflection, just see what themes are coming up for you now that may have been coming up there in maybe a different way, but we've actually moved up the spiral of evolution, so they're probably playing out in a different way. And this solar eclipse has definitely got to do with relationships and emotions and our defensiveness in those areas particularly. It obviously kind of resonates with our entire chart, but that's where the focus is with the new moon solar eclipse being in the sign of Libra. So this new moon, we have not only the sun, we have the moon as well as the planet Mercury, which is also in the sign of Libra, very close to the new moon, which means that the sun and Mercury are what we call combust, which can result in kind of a lot of thoughts coming in and us being overwhelmed by our thinking processes. Now, also involved in this solar eclipse is the south node of the moon. So it's what we call a south node solar eclipse, which means that a lot of old stuff, old karmic patterns are coming up because the south node represents past, the north node represents future. So when we have a south node eclipse, it actually means that it's an ending period. It's a time to clear away old patterns, old karmic debts, old unforgivenesses. That's what a south node eclipse means. So although it's a new moon and new moons are times of new beginnings, this also has an element of finishing off the old, most definitely. And as I say, this could go back and have roots in the time of 2005, at this time, also October. I think it was October the 3rd. Now, this solar eclipse is also, just to make things a little bit more spicy, is also in what we call a square, which means it's a 90-degree angle with the planet Mars. Mars is the planet of war, Mars is the planet of forward motion, and it can be the planet of assertion and aggression. When it's in the sign of Cancer, which is where it is right now, Mars is what we call in its fore. It doesn't like being in Cancer. It's one of the signs where it doesn't behave kind of positively. So when you put this into a square, Mars into a square with the sun, the moon, Mercury, and the south node, what that will mean very often is that old defensive patterns of response, old projections can come to the surface. Old angers can come to the surface as well, because Mars is the planet of anger. And being in the sign of Cancer, it can actually be quite defensive and quite projective, very emotional. So that's some sort of tricky energy that we have to deal with, but I see it really as part of this closing of cycles. And you can also see it as whatever's coming up to the surface is coming up so that you really can clear it. If you look at the ring of fire, if you just look at it intuitively, it's almost like it's burning away the past, burning away what is no longer needed. And just something that just came to me is, if you can imagine on the 2nd and leading up to the 2nd, that ring of fire, and every time that you have a difficult emotion, something that you haven't processed, every time that you want to react instead of respond, what if you could just send that right into the middle of that ring of fire and let it burn out very gently, but very powerfully. because this is a time of endings. This is a time where we're clearing energy. And what we often don't acknowledge is that the energy that's being cleared doesn't feel comfortable. This particular solar eclipse there's quite a lot of conflict involved, particularly with it being in that square to Mars. In addition to that, we still have Pluto, which is hovering at the end of his journey in Capricorn. He's going to shortly move forward again, and then he'll spend another few weeks in the sign of Capricorn, and then he's gone from Capricorn forever. And while we're seeing that, we're seeing a lot of old patterns of thought, and old secrets coming up to the surface all over the world, particularly within the elite, within the authoritarian areas of life where we've actually feel that we have been overpowered or our power has been taken away. So those things can come up for us personally as well. Where have we given our power away? Where don't we stand up for ourselves? The south node of the moon in Libra is saying, yes, it's important to cooperate, it's important to collaborate, it's important to bring balance into relationships. But the opposite of that, the north node, is in Aries, which says we also need to stand in our own vibration, be true to our own rhythm. So those kind of themes can come up also at this new moon. So where have we actually absconded from our own sense of what is true and right for us? Where do we try to just keep the peace at the expense of our kind of vibration and our rhythm without going to war? So if anything is coming up for you that might be painful, there could be stuff coming up from childhood, which is also Mars in Cancer. There could be old injuries that may have worsened, particularly on the axis of the cardinal axis. So if you are a cardinal sign, if you have anything, your sun, your moon, your ascendant, or any of your personal planets in cardinal signs, this will be more sort of up for you. So if you have Aries in your chart, Cancer, Libra, or Capricorn, then you might find that you are feeling this eclipse season more because it would be triggering your chart in some way. So cardinal energy is very powerful energy. So it's a very powerful letting go energy, clearing energy, and actually moving into the new. However, as I said, we're still in the end of the Pluto cycle, which means that there's more clearing to do. And we're kind of in the crucible of change. This is an energetic release point. Eclipses are always turning points. And this one is very powerful as an upgrade, as a reset, as somewhere where I don't really want to respond in that way anymore. Is there anything that I can do to change the way that I project, the way that I respond? And if you look at the glyph or the symbol for Libra, it gives us a very good idea of how to do that. Libra is the sign of the scales. We have the left and the right, the past and the future, the good and the bad, the right and the wrong. And if we're on either side of those scales, we're going to be out of balance. We're going to be going from one side to the other, which is normally the mind that takes us into the past, takes us into the future, or causes us to judge. This is right, this is wrong, I am good, you are bad. That's the scales. Libra is not all just about balance. People who are born with strong Libra in their chart doesn't mean that they're balanced all the time. It means that they are actually constantly balancing the scales of peace, balance, justice, harmony. So where do we find the point of balance? We find it right in the middle of the scale. So if you are caught up in any kind of drama, if you can feel that you're being triggered over the next few days, and actually for the next 10 days at least, can you bring yourself back into the center of that scale, or into that center of that ring of fire, whatever works for you symbolically? Breathe. With Mercury around, there can be a lot of sort of heightened thoughts, fast breathing. So if you can slow down your breath, Mercury rules breath. So bring the breath in to actually calm the nervous system down. This is an eclipse where the nervous system can be quite blustery. So how can we calm it down? How can we come into that middle point where there is balance? And that's where we're able to clear from the middle point. We're not able to clear when we're up here because there's too much going on. So it's that time of pause. A new moon is always a time of pause. It's a time when we slow down, where everything goes dark for a little bit. In this one, other than a ring of fire, even if you can't see it, you certainly can't see it all over the world, but just know that that is what's happening. So it's the dark, but the light is still there as well. That's also very important to remember. If you're going through some darkness, remember that there's always light there. And it's to connect to the light that comes out of the darkness very often. And so when we're moving through darkness, it's just the knowing that there's the light is there as well, and that we are being held in the light. Now, the other thing that's happening, there's two other things that are happening, is that the ruler of this new moon is Venus. Venus is the planet of love. It's the planet of relationship. It's the planet of value. And so Venus is in the sign of Scorpio. Scorpio is ruled by Pluto. So it brings the Pluto equation into the picture. Scorpio is an intense, passionate sign. It's deep. Venus in Scorpio wants to investigate underneath the surface, wants to go into her internal world and clear that which is no longer necessary, no longer working, particularly in relationships, because she's the planet of relationships. So this will play out in all relationships. Obviously, the closer the person is to you, the more it'll play out. So even though it often represents female relationships or relationships with people that we're actually in relationship with intimately, it does go right through all relationships. And Venus in Scorpio, for me, wants us to look at how we can value ourselves in our relationship, what our relationship is like with ourselves and with life, with the sacred, with the universal energy, what needs to be cleared, what needs to possibly be investigated and swept away, washed away. Scorpio is a water sign, so it's again the washing away, the unpleasant parts, the shadow, the shame, the guilt. All of us have a shadow. It's to see the shadow, not in judgment, but to see what the shadow is bringing up for us. And this new moon really speaks into that, because very often our shadows are triggered by somebody standing in front of us, particularly people who are close to us. So what is that feeling, that trigger where you want to actually explode, or you want to defend, or you want to explain, or you want to change, or you want to overpower the other person or manipulate the other person? What is that tendency? What is that? And a lot of the energy right now is suggesting that we really, really come up to the plate in terms of our adulthood, in terms of taking responsibility for those feelings. Mars in Cancer. Those feelings could be anger. They could be resentment. So where am I feeling resentment? How can I clear that within myself before I project it out onto the person in front of me, whoever that may be? To help us with that, we actually have a very beautiful grand trine between Venus, Saturn, and Mars. So Venus and Mars are trine each other, which is a favorable aspect, and then both of those are trine Saturn. Venus, Mars, the relationship planets. Another confirmer that this is about relationship with the male, the female, the doing, the being, the pushing forward, the leaning back. And Saturn is almost like a guardian here. Saturn is the planet, especially in this kind of formation, which is the planet of maturity, the planet of karma. The planet will say, okay, where are you as an adult in this relationship? Can you actually connect with that part of you that has evolved, that has changed? Hopefully so that you don't repeat the same cycle carrying forward, so that something really shifts. And just know that this is a shifting point. And there is definitely a clearing energy with these three planets in water signs. Venus in Scorpio, Mars in Cancer, Saturn in Pisces. It's allowing the water to wash away what is no longer needed, no longer useful, no longer working. So it's really for us to honestly sort of dig down within ourselves to see where our patterns are. This is possibly an upgrade for partnership. It's an opening to vulnerability, to being very open, very honest with somebody, not to expect them to do anything, but to say, this is how I'm feeling, and this is what I'm processing, openly, honestly, vulnerably. And then that actually starts to unblock the blocks that separate us. So there's a lot of healing here as well. So just remember that ring of fire, send it into the ring of fire. If you feel triggered, come back into that balance point in the middle of the scales. This month in our inner space community, I have an inner space community with my partner John Homewood, and we meet twice a month on Zoom for 90 minutes, where we do some counseling, we do some sharing with our group, and then you also get a lot of access to material. You get a meditation, you get journal, you get affirmations, you get a creative exercise, and all those things are designed to help you to navigate the energy over the next month, which is obviously themed astrologically because I'm an astrologer. So you can join us there for just 1 month, or you can join us for a year if you like our community, which I'm sure you will. There's some beautiful, beautiful souls there, and it's a holding space for these times that we're going through, because we are definitely going through some crucibles. We are definitely going through some changes. We are definitely going through very big end times, clearings. And so we can support each other through that. So join us for that. The details are in the description below. I'm going to do a card reading for you as well. But if you have liked this or are enjoying this, please would you remember to subscribe, like it, because that gets it out to more people, and possibly give us a comment. I love to hear your comments on how you're feeling this energy. It's a potentially really powerful energy. It sounds sort of tricky, which it is, but there's also some real support in this one. So just tune in if you can. Tune in. Just keep on tuning in, and keep tuning into the love vibration. Keep tuning into peace. Set your day up every day with words like, I am peace. I am in the center. I remain centered, firmly and gently, despite what's going on around me. I stay in the center of my own peace. That is really the essence of Libra. If we can connect with that, we can actually navigate all of these energies really gracefully. I pulled a card out of my favorite pack, the Divine Feminine. This pack was gifted to me a few years ago by Liesel. Thank you, Liesel. It's really been a beautiful blessing. And the card that I was given today was Bridget, the goddess of the eternal flame, which is beautiful. I am an eternal flame, and each day my light grows stronger. I'm not going to give you too much here on who Bridget was, but she represents the essence of an inner dawn and the healing that comes from knowing that the best is yet to come. So that's the new moon energy. She was the goddess of pre-Christian Ireland. It is said at the moment between dusk and daybreak, Bridget arose into the sky with flames like rays of the sun blazing in her hair. Bridget is associated with poetry and with all things elevated, states of being, high rising flames, lofty dimensions, elevated wisdom. She is said to have created the whistle for calling out from one person to another while walking through the night, which lifts the wanderer with its levity and reminds her that she is not alone. Beautiful. When your soul selects this card, there's that moment where you're making your way through the dark, and suddenly, after what feels like days or months or even years, a ray of light comes through you. A lightning happens. Each step isn't quite as hard to make as the one before, and you feel a great shift begin, as if you're now headed towards something new, something even brighter. Bridget is the essence of the first flame, that first ray of light. Bridget reminds us that the darkness never lasts. Bridget's eternal flame represents the truth that the light never leaves us and can never be extinguished. It simply gets obscured or blocked from us. Solar eclipse. She reminds us that every day is actually filled with light. There are many days in our lives when we endure thick cloud cover. When that flame that exists within us is blocked by pain or confusion. Bridget is the sweet sound that reaches us in the dark and reminds us that we have never been on this journey alone. Bridget is our sign that the dawn is here because we have made it through the dark winter. We can lift our head. The healing has happened, and now each day is bound to be lighter. Soul voice meditation, what allows me to feel light more often every day? The intention, I am an eternal flame, and each day my light grows brighter. Those are beautiful meditations and beautiful affirmations to weave into your day, to weave into your meditations. I would encourage you to spend some time in meditation this new moon, spend some time in nature, spend some time coming into your center. So stay in the center of the wheel. Things are pretty chaotic out there right now in the world. So we can be the peace that we want to see in the world. I hope this has helped in some way. Have a beautiful solar eclipse. Remember, this energy is already in play and it will last after the solar eclipse as well. So allow that which needs to leave, to leave. Allow that which needs to stay. If you'd like to see how this eclipse season and how these major alignments, Pluto and Uranus and Neptune and all these major planets are playing out in your particular chart, you're very welcome to contact me through the description below and we can set up an appointment for a reading. If you have already had your chart done before, then it's quite good to see what's going on for you at the moment with the current movements. So thanks again. Please subscribe and share this if it resonates with you. Take care. Thank you for listening and have a beautiful day.